Sunday edition of The Handle here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Matt Brown, Mike Somich coming to you from Las Vegas, as always, proudly brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. And we do not have a lot of time before the madness begins here this morning, so we'll kind of recap stuff here in a little bit. But Mike, let's right off the top, you've got a play that you want to let everyone know about.
Let's jump right into this this opening game here. We've got Marquette taking on the number 10 seed Colorado. Marquette been bet up almost since this line came out, so it opened right around that 3.5 range. We're all the way up to 5 at this point. I like Marquette quite a bit here in the first half. I'm going to lay the 2.5. I do like them for the game -5 as well. This is a Marquette team that there were questions about their health coming into the tournament. Tyler Kolek specifically scores 15 points a game for him, averages close to 8 assists. He looked phenomenal in the first round. He looks healthy, and if he's healthy, this Marquette team should be able to roll over Colorado. It's a tough task for Colorado. This is going to be their third game in 5 days. They were in the first 4. They were able to get through that round in a defensive battle. They had an offensive battle against Florida. The problem is you're getting an offensive team in Marquette that is similar to Florida but can play defense. And to me, that's just a really tough matchup here for Colorado to come in and play this third game in 5 days. So I laid the 2.5 with Marquette first half. I would lay the 5 with Marquette in the game as well if you're interested in playing the game versus the first half. I think they have a decided edge over Colorado here.
Yep, coming to you in about 8 minutes. So again, if you do want to get in on that one, about 8 minutes from now is when we're looking at Colorado and Marquette. Looking back on yesterday a bit here, Mike, listen, we got through, I think, for the most part, a little bit, at least with some of our futures bets are still live with all of that. Let's do, what are some takeaways for you from yesterday? I mean, if we start off, North Carolina, of course, at one point looked like maybe they were going to be in a battle with Michigan State. Then they went out and had a pretty dominant win in the second half after that. I mean, I guess for me, if I'm coming out of this saying, all right, well, we were wanting teams yesterday to prove their dominance. We were wanting a team like Arizona to go in and step on the throat. And then we did at least get that for North Carolina.
We did. I thought North Carolina played very well. They persevered in the first half as well. They were down 10 in that game early, and they were able to ramp up the defensive efficiency. They were able to, or defensive intensity. They were able to get that offense going, and they were cooking on the offensive end, ended up putting up 85 points, including 45 in the second half, and just taking care of business. And that's what you want when you have these 1 seeds, is you want to see them go in there and take care of business. We saw Arizona look pretty good for the majority of that game. They opened up a couple times. That was a phenomenal betting game because we ended up a half point off the side and a half point off the total. So it was a fun one to watch end here in the sports book. And then to me, the other one is I was a little disappointed in Tennessee. I mean, we talk about these teams that are able to open up and win, and we had every single favorite cover yesterday except for Tennessee, and Tennessee was in control of that game and just kind of let Washington State creep back into it. So, I'm sorry, let Texas creep back into it. So we'll see what Tennessee does moving forward. I have them in the Final Four. They're a team I bet to win that bracket. Creighton, a team that we talked about struggling when they're on the road or at a neutral site from 3. They shot very well against a bad team round 1. They struggled last night against Oregon shooting the 3 ball. It'll be interesting to see what happens in that Tennessee-Creighton matchup next. I still like Tennessee in that spot. I have not seen a number yet, but that's going to be one of the more interesting Sweet 16 games that we get.
Yeah, that game was quite interesting. Of course, a double overtime game there with Creighton and Oregon. At the end of the day, Creighton goes 15 of 39 from downtown. They were 13 of 14 from the stripe, which was a big advantage considering Oregon only made it to the line 5 times over the course of that game. So let's look at one other score here yesterday. I want to get your quick thoughts on this. But we have a team in Illinois that goes out and gets Duquesne. And look, Illinois, we had a couple of different guys, a couple of different guests over the course of the season that were really into Illinois. And I guess I never really took a long, hard look at them. You said you were looking maybe even to fade them at some point, and they really did go out, and that was a pretty dominant win yesterday.
Yeah, Illinois looked good. Now, you got to remember, I mean, Duquesne here, they won their conference tournament to be able to get in. They were not going to get a bid had they not won their conference tournament. So this is another team. You mentioned Oregon. Oregon gave Creighton everything they wanted, and they were just gassed in that second overtime. They were basically playing a 2-man game the entire time, and they ran out of gas there. Duquesne, I think there's a similar scenario here where they just couldn't match up with Illinois on the offensive end. And Illinois, a very tough team to play. They like to run. They love to score. They're very good on offense. Mm-hmm. They're not great on defense. And Duquesne, not the type of team that's going to be able to take advantage of that. I thought this was a great matchup for Illinois. Like I said, I'm going to fade them at some point in this tournament. I didn't want to lay the 10 with them yesterday, but I wasn't ready to take the 10 with Duquesne either. To me, this is one of those teams where I'm happy that they blew them out. I want the opportunity to take Illinois against a good team, play against Illinois versus a good team, and we should get that in the next round or the final or the Elite Eight as well. So for me, I'm happy Illinois blew them out because I think it gives you a better chance to play against them in the next round.
We did get 2-0 yesterday in the UFC. We got the 2 boring fights we asked for, so we got that. Yeah, we got that. We're 2-0 in the UFC. 2-2 yesterday in my NBA side of things. I don't know how did NBA end up for you?
I went 3-1.
All right, yeah.
And I missed the 4-0 by 1 point. I had under 109 first half, and they put up 110.
Lost to the Juice yesterday. Did I got both player props home. Booker with 7 boards, and Wemby only had 1 block, but. The favorite and underdog did not work out for me.
It's okay. We'll take another shot at that again today.
We'll see what we can get going here. But we are pretty excited about these 5 things.
All right, classic. High five. It's time for the Handles High Five. High five. All right. Number 1.
Of course, college basketball continues to roll on. We just talked about it, a tip happening here now in about 3.5 minutes, Colorado and Marquette. Mike, you do have a pick. If people are just tuning in, just finding us on their dial, what are we looking for here, Colorado Marquette?
Yeah, I think this is a Marquette team that got healthy at the right time. They have a decided advantage on the offensive end. They should be able to score much like Florida was against Colorado. They should play a lot better defense than Florida did against Colorado here. It's the Colorado team that's playing their 3rd game in 5 days. I think Marquette comes out, jumps all over them early. I laid the 2.5 in the first half. I like them -5 in the game as well. I think Marquette takes care of business here in our first game.
Of course, tons of basketball today. We'll get to every one of the games: Utah State, Purdue, James Madison and Duke, with Clemson and Baylor, Grand Canyon, Alabama, Northwestern, UConn, A&M and Houston, and then Yale and San Diego State. Stick around for all of our thoughts on those. Let's keep it rolling.
Number 2.
Hockey and horses. This is Mike's segment here on the program each and every day. We were able to get home the exacta yesterday. I texted you because I decided to play some horses. And when I decided to play some horses, and I watched our guy in a pretty prime spot there at Turfway, and then just the gas tank just left him, just ran right out of gas. And I said, our boy faded, man. Our boy faded.
We had Wolfie's Dynaghost.
Wolfie's faded, man.
One of my favorite horses in training right now. Unfortunately, he was not able to go gate to wire in that spot. The article over on VSiN had a nice 11-1 exacta, so that was a nice little pop there, almost $500 for the $50 bet.
And if people had actually misread what you put on the thing, it actually went 5-7 in the 12th race as well. So you could, if you accidentally put in the bet for the 12th, you got home there too.
You got home there too. That one paid a lot more. That was a little frustrating. Hall of Fame didn't run well with a horse that I liked in the Louisiana Derby, but the horse that did win was the other one we mentioned, the 5 Catching Freedom, who I've been high on for a while. So we'll see if Catching Freedom can continue on. We're not going to see the winner of the Jeff Ruby Stakes endlessly move on to the Kentucky Derby. He's going to stay on the turf, and we talked about that yesterday, how the synthetic translates over to the turf well. So we're going to see him go to a turf race over at Churchill Downs on Kentucky Derby Day. Catching Freedom will be one of your favorites in the Kentucky Derby after that Louisiana Downs victory.
Keep it rolling.
Number 3.
Oh, brother. So when we left here yesterday, I told you I had a Justin Thomas ticket. Justin Thomas had birdied 1 and was tied for the lead.
Yeah. How'd the other 17 holes go?
Justin Thomas then played the next 17 holes at 9 over.
Yeah, that's not good.
At 9 over. Justin Thomas at 9 over. And so you go and you're like, okay, obviously got to be a blow-up hole in there. No. Just bogey. It looked like one of our scorecards. Like, it wasn't, there was no 8 or 9 or anything in there. It was just bogey after bogey after bogey after bogey, because Justin Thomas, as we said, putting comes and goes. First 2 days, it came back to him. The goes part, goed yesterday for Justin Thomas.
A little regression there after the 2 good putting days. I walked downstairs to come to the studio, and I look up, and it's Justin Thomas on 17 plus 3, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be interesting with Matt this morning. What the heck happened here?
Justin Thomas, and this is, I mean, for a pro, any pro, but specifically Justin Thomas, this is just wild. He did not make a putt longer than 2 foot 9 inches yesterday.
Oh man, I can beat him on that.
His longest putt was 2 foot 9 inches. Missed a 4-footer, a 5-footer, missed a 6.5-foot. These are all, some of these were even for birdie that he ran past like another 6-7 feet and missed the comebacker to bogey the holes along. I mean, something happened on starting at hole number 2, and he could not
We just lost
putt
it.
a golf ball. Yes.
One of us, baby. One of us.
Lost over 7 strokes in one round putting to the field. Absolutely crazy. Let's keep it going.
Number 4.
We didn't finish those NFL draft props yesterday that we were talking about, so we are going to get to those today, and some very interesting ones out there. Looking forward to talking about those. A couple of other teams out there that what position is their first draft pick going to be. We pick a handful of those to take a look at, because some of them are pretty interesting, right? Because despite the fact what the favorite number is, I think we will be able to go in and kind of make a compelling case for either the second or third shot.
It's nice to do this after free agency as well, because you have a lot better idea of what those holes are left in these organizations once you get through that free agency period.
Let's go.
Number 5.
Number 5 is to make the playoffs. Yes, those have been added over at DraftKings as well. It is amazing. It is amazing.
Great.
Listen,
it's like Christmas.
These are things that you used to get 2 or 3 weeks before the season started. And now we are getting out here in March.
2 prices jumped out at me that I would absolutely not bet, and I want to see if you can come back and bet the no.
So we are going to look here at the odds to make the playoffs for some of these teams out there in the NFL. And yeah, we know the draft is still to come, but free agency is all but over. We have a decent idea of at least what the makeup of these teams are going to look like, and we can give you our thoughts on whether these teams are going to make the playoffs or not. But of course, we got to run through each and every game that we have in the March Madness slate today. So we're doing that when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, do we have a deal for you? You want to save $41 on an annual subscription? Well, head on over to VSiN.com/subscribe. When you go in, use the promo code HANDLE, HANDLE, and when you do, you are going to get an entire year of everything that we do for just $199. You get the daily best bets, you get the betting splits, Mike, you get all the betting guides and everything we do over there at VSiN.com, and we're going to save you $41 when you use the code HANDLE.
You got to use the code HANDLE, HANDLE.
There it is. Go in, VSiN.com/subscribe today for every single thing we do over there. Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. We are counting down to some other games going on, but we did tip off, and you were just screaming, all right, game's over. In the game.
End it. We're up 5-0 in the first minute.
End the game in Marquette in Colorado. It is 8-5 right now as we are about 3.5 minutes into that one. But listen, we have a slew of other games today. Anxious to get your thoughts if there are any that made your betting card today. So outside of what we got going on right now, which we know did in fact make your betting card, we'll have Utah State and Purdue coming to us here in about 2 hours. And right now Purdue is 11.5, 12, something like that. 11.5, 12 point favorite. 149.5 is the total.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Yesterday we talked about how favorites, we expected them to dominate. And that played out. We saw favorites go 6-1-1 against the spread, 8-0 money line. So all those money line parlays, everybody got home if you money line parlayed the favorites. I think it might be a different story today. I think we could have a couple dogs that are barking here. I'm not sure Utah State's one of them, though. They really struggled defending the interior. That's bad news when you're playing Zach Edey, who possibly is the best big man here in college basketball right now. I didn't bet this game. I have the number sitting at Purdue -12, so no big edge there. The total I have at 151, so no big edge there. I do like Edey points total over, though. He's sitting at 24.5, 25.5, depending on where you're playing right now. I think he goes for 30 in this spot. They are going to absolutely feed him here, and I don't think this game becomes one of those where it's a 30-point game and you take Edey out. So I like the Zach Edey over points prop in this spot, but didn't play the side or total.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. They've got that guy for Utah State as a Ozabar or whatever, who's a pretty big guy that has been a decent scorer for them. I'm wondering what Edey can do. That's kind of what I'm going to be watching in that game more than anything else, is Edey going up against someone that I think might actually have at least a little bit of success against him, and see what that looks like moving forward. Of course, Purdue not on my card as far as any sort of futures tickets or anything, so I'm just more looking at how dangerous might this Purdue team be should they run into one of my futures tickets.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind if they lost. I mean, we got Tennessee winning the bracket,
yes.
So if Utah State wants to go ahead and knock off Purdue, I'm not going to complain about it.
Some of these things we can root against.
Exactly.
Like, even if we had a bet on Purdue, we wouldn't necessarily hate it if they lost, right? Sometimes you can be okay with losing even a bet that you've got.
Yeah, you could be wrong, but it helps you be right later. That's a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of those things where I'll be watching if they were to get knocked off. Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Fine.
Sounds good to me. All right, James Madison and Duke. That is about 5:15 Eastern time. Sitting right now, Duke about 6.5, 7-point favorites, 147.5 the total.
Yeah, this total has been bombed to the under, and I agree with it. I bet it at 149 yesterday, or like you said, 147.5 now. So we've seen a 1.5 move toward the under. Duke all season has struggled with very physical defenses. That's what James Madison's going to bring here. They're going to try and play a very physical defensive style, hit some threes, keep this game close. I don't love the side, but to me, even at 147.5, this is still playable toward the under. I had a couple people who from syndicates reach out. They're on the under here at 148. I think that 147.5, you've missed the best of it, but you haven't gotten out of hand yet to the under. I had this game at 144.5, so I still think there's room. Probably would bet it down to about 146.5, just so that you have some leeway, some advantage there. But to me, this is an under game. This is a Duke team also that's not going to play up tempo. They don't mind slowing it down a little bit. They play very good defense as well. And if Duke does blow James Madison out, they slow it down in the second half when they have a lead too. So everything here points to the under for me. So I'll take the under. I played 149. I'd still play the 147.5.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting in this one. One thing to just take a look at, and we have to understand that there is a quality of opponent factor that goes into all of this, but James Madison did hold opponents to under 30% from behind the arc this year. So actually 29% from three over the course of the season. And so Duke, a pretty efficient shooting team, about 38% over the course of the season. So that would be at least an interesting thing to watch, as we don't necessarily think James Madison's going to knock off Duke in this scenario, but can they limit those threes? Can they do what they did all season long in, having teams, miss 2 out of every 3 that they put up against them? And if that's the case, we saw this at 7.5 last night, has moved to 7 now. So there was some support coming in on James Madison, thinking that maybe they might be able to limit what Duke does well.
Yeah, it's interesting because yesterday, again, a lot of people on the favorites. Today, you've got multiple public dogs here. Utah State, one of the most bet teams from a ticket count. James Madison, one of the most bet teams from a ticket count. Grand Canyon, one of the most bet teams from a ticket count. So you have 3 of the top 5 bet teams here, all as dogs, and we did not see that yesterday. Yesterday, it was all favorites that were being played. The Oregon was up there in the ticket count, but outside of that, it was all favorites. Today, we are seeing much more ticket count on the dogs, and that makes a difference to me, because that means there's a lot more people who are betting $10, $20, $30 on these underdogs, which is surprising when you're in these major matchups, because James Madison and Duke, you walk up to the window, you don't know very much about this season, you're probably playing Duke. And that's not the case, not what we've seen today. So it'll be interesting to see if the public dogs get home. That's been something that you talk about in football. Public dogs, not generally something you want. Today is a college basketball day filled with public dogs.
We had one of our guests who will actually be joining us later in the program as well, Eli Hershkovitz from over at thelines.com. The first time that he joined us here on the program, Mike, he said, Clemson might have what it takes to, if they run pure, maybe be one of those teams that could disrupt the tournament. Here we are a month and a half later, and Clemson will be taking the court against Baylor as just about a 4.5, 5-point dog, depending on where you're looking out there. And so this could be one of those games, like we said, where, Clemson, if that were to come to fruition, could go in and possibly disrupt some of the brackets out there. That being said, I think that there is a decent amount of love here on Baylor coming late.
Yeah, it's interesting. This game opened, I believe it was 4.5. We saw Clemson get down to 3.5. Now we've seen it bet back out to Baylor -4. To me, this is the story of this game, and I have not bet this one. I'm leaning toward Baylor, but have not played it. It's going to be whether or not Clemson can play good defense. If they're able to defend Baylor, and Baylor very efficient on the offensive side, then this is going to be a game. If Baylor is able to get what they want offensively, and I think it is likely they do, Baylor has got a very good shot of covering and moving on here.
Yeah, they got a lot of weapons. They actually have a pretty good amount of offensive weapons here, and so it's one of those things where I think whenever you look at a multiple team like Baylor, to have everybody go cold all at once is incredibly likely. So we'll see how this one goes. But Baylor, one of those other teams too, that about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, when we were talking to people, we were hearing Baylor come up, time and time again.
They shoot the 3-ball really well. They hit 13 of them in the first round. They've got multiple players that can get it up and hit it, and that's a key. If you're able to shoot the 3-ball well, both on the road and at home, you can do well in the NCAA tournament. And Baylor's one of those teams that has shot the ball well consistently all season long, with a plethora of guys who can make that triple.
Grand Canyon and Alabama. Alabama, a 6.5 to 7 point favorite in this one. 169.5 is our total. One of the SEC teams to advance. Alabama, everyone. That's all we've talked about here for the last 48 hours is how bad the SEC is. But Alabama did advance, and Alabama gets Grand Canyon today.
Yeah, they do, and I'm surprised we're at 6.5 here. This is one of those games where I thought Grand Canyon would get some love. I bet Grand Canyon +6 in this spot. They opened shorter. It was 5.5 yesterday, so we've seen Alabama money come in. I get it because the total's sitting at 170, so you expect a ton of scoring here. So having a number like 6.5, you could see the favorite being able to extend that lead out. And Bama can score with anybody. But Grand Canyon, one of those teams that people don't know as well. They made a little bit of a run last year. They bring back pretty much everyone this year. And then you bring in Tyron Grant Foster, a transfer who plays very, very well, leads the team in scoring, averaging over 6 rebounds a game as well. It's a team that can shoot the three. This is a team that plays very good defense, or tough defense, I should say. Not always the best, but tough defense. I don't think Alabama gets to pick their score in this one, and I think Grand Canyon can score with Alabama. I'll take the 6.5 here with Grand Canyon.
All righty. There we go.
Yeah, you know.
A little Grand Canyon action in here.
Nothing like
today.
a lope on a Saturday or Sunday, right?
Northwestern and UConn. This is UConn, big favorites here. 13.5, 14 points, 135.5. Is our total. UConn, one of the best teams over the course of the entire season. Here they come in, look good in the first round, and so find themselves as big favorites here.
Yeah, big favorites is a low total, too. 135.5, one of the lower totals we're going to see today. So the 13.5, a big number to cover, especially against a Northwestern team that does not turn the ball over very often. This is a veteran-laden team. A lot of juniors and seniors going to be handling the ball for Northwestern. I passed on this one. I've got UConn as a 14-point favorite, so a half point off here. But I don't want to lay the 13.5 with this low of a total against a team that doesn't turn it over.
Texas A&M and Houston, and then Yale and San Diego State. We'll catch those here on the other side and get your thoughts here on A&M and Houston, Yale and San Diego State. As we look right now, Marquette up 11 on Colorado early for those of you driving around out there listening to us on the radio. So we do have an 11-point advantage. That's at lots of time, as they say.
No,
still plenty of basketball to be played here in the first half, but 11:36 left in the first half, 22-11 in that one. When we come back, A&M, Houston, Yale, San Diego State here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
You heard the man. It is The Handle here on DraftKings Network. VSiN, Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you. Did leave off a couple of games here that we need to talk about. See if you have any opinions on those. I know you have at least one opinion on one of them, but let's start out with A&M and Houston. Houston is sitting not quite a double-digit favorite in this one, about 9.5, 134.5 the total here over A&M.
Yeah, we saw A&M shoot the lights out last round, be able to advance, putting up almost 100 points. Houston played phenomenal defense. They won by 40 in round one. This one's tough. I could see a world where either of these teams, where this is either a close game, A&M is able to give Houston everything they want. I could see a world where Houston just blows them out as well. If A&M doesn't shoot the ball very well, this could be a very long day for the Aggies. Total sitting at 134.5. I was a little interested in the under. This thing's got steam to the over, though. It started at 133.5. We've seen it move up a full point since it opened. I have a very small lean to the under, but outside of that, I think this is an absolutely wide open game. I think it's a pretty high variance game just because of the way both of these two teams play and how A&M tries to score the ball.
Yeah, A&M did make a switch kind of late in the season to a 3-guard lineup, which has produced at least a little bit better offensive stats for them. But again, you look at how they shot the three, that's unsustainable.
No.
So it comes into, okay, how much regression is going to set in, and is that regression going to be so much that they're not going to be able to keep this thing within 10 points?
Yeah, and a very different beast when you're playing Houston, one of the better defenses in the country. They've got long guards that have reach, so you're going to have to shoot over them. It's a tough spot for A&M to try and keep that going. And like you said, regression's coming. It's just how big of a regression are we going to see? But at the same time, I mean, look, the A&M can fill it up. You mentioned the three-guard lineup. They've been very good shooting since they moved to that lineup. Can they keep it up? That's the big question.
Mm-hmm.
And these type of games, when I've got 8 games on a slate, I like a couple of them. I'm not going to force a bet in this type of spot.
Absolutely. And I guess that's one thing, actually, we should go ahead and say right now in all of this. Like, yeah, there's a lot of games, and we get it. You want to have some... You don't have to bet every single one of these games. Like there's by the time some of these roll around, the number will have been hammered into place like very, very well. So just remember that, you don't have to bet every single one of these things. And if you do and you just want some action, then make sure it's just a fraction of what you would normally bet because it's more of a fun bet than anything else.
Yeah, and I wrote about this on Friday for VSiN.com. The NCAA tournament is one of the, I would say, the most difficult college basketball betting weekends of the year, because you've got we got a lot of games yesterday, 16 of them. Yeah, well, it's like awesome, sweet. Or I'm sorry, Friday, Thursday, and Friday. You got 16 games. On a Saturday, you get 144 of them, and you've got small conferences. You've got home court advantages. You've got all of these other things that go into play. Now we're playing 8 games, 16 games on a neutral site. They're all getting 10, 20, 30x the handle that we saw during the regular season. These lines are going to generally be sharper than what we saw during the regular season. It's going to be a lot more focus on them. The books are going to focus on them more. It makes it more difficult to beat these numbers. And so if you miss the openers, right, and you saw like Oakland, for example, open 7. If you got them at 7, you're a winner, right? But if you didn't, you got kind of kicked in overtime a little bit. So it's all about what number you're able to get, and the sharp numbers are going to get taken pretty early in these games. So it's almost like the NFL, where we were talking about it the Sunday before the next week. We would get some of the bets we like because we felt those numbers were going to move. If you're looking at college basketball, you want to take a look at those openers and trying to bet the early numbers so that you get the best of it versus coming in right before game action.
Last game of the evening, Yale and San Diego State. San Diego State is favored in this one by about 5.5 to 128.5 is your total, and you are going to go with the smart guys.
Yeah, give me the Bulldogs, baby. I like the under a little bit too here, sitting at 129. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game. San Diego State's going to cause some trouble for Yale on the defensive side, but this is a Yale team that's been phenomenal all year. They were the best team in the Ivy League from beginning to end, and they can shoot the 3 ball very well. They have a nice motion offense that I like. I think they give San Diego State some trouble on the defensive end, and I think they're able to keep this game close. I'm not sure if they can pull out the outright victory, but 5.5 feels too big to me. I made this one closer to 4, so I'll take the points with the Bulldogs.
You see they had to pull a referee at halftime.
A what?
Yesterday.
Really?
Did you see this?
No, I missed it.
Did you not see this?
What happened?
It was in the women's tournament.
Okay, that's why I missed it.
And they had to pull a referee at halftime because they didn't do a proper background check to find out that she was an alumni of one of the teams playing in the game. Like, what are we doing?
That's not great.
What are we doing? We bet on this stuff.
A proper background check? Where'd you go to school? Like, that's not hard.
It's like, what are we doing here? We bet on this stuff. Come on, man.
I thought when you were like background check, I'm like, oh man, what did she get tagged for? You're like, no, she went to school there.
She went to school there.
That's something you should know.
Got her master's from the.
Possibly have that on the file.
Should be
maybe
should be something we should be dealing with
maybe
before the game starts and not doing it at halftime, maybe. But hey, listen, I'm just a talking head.
Yeah,
you know, I'm not running.
What do
I'm
we
not
know?
running the NCAA, so I'm just
might make a difference, but maybe not.
I'm just a talking head up here. All right, we mentioned the Valspar, and I'm not going to say it's unbettable because there's always some angle you could go with, always something you could do if you wanted to bet it, but it's just become kind of muddied. So we do have a 2-stroke lead for Keith Mitchell over Seamus Power, Peter Malnati, and Mackenzie Hughes. We do have a name player there in that 7 under group with Cam Young sitting at 7 under. So could Cam Young, maybe even a Brendan Todd, who we've seen have a little bit of success on tour, could he possibly make a move today? Keith Mitchell, if you're wondering how he got there, in his round yesterday, gets to 18, dunks one from 150 yards out for eagle, which had him go birdie, eagle to finish his round yesterday, which shot him into the lead, ended up shooting a 66 despite having 3 bogeys on his card there, Mike. And so you kind of look, I mean, Cameron Young obviously is pedigreed. Cameron Young is a guy, though, that isn't, if you talk about win equity, just doesn't win a lot on the tour. Just a guy that is a consistent top 10 performer. Maybe if you wanted to go in that direction, there are a couple of dudes that are known to go low that are a little bit lower down the leaderboard here. Adam Hadwin is a guy that at times can put up a low score. Adam Svensson is a guy at times can put up a low score, but they're 4 off the lead with Mitchell right now. So I just kind of look at this. Maybe once we get 9 holes in, if there's a compacted leaderboard, maybe we can try to go in and just pick the cream of the crop to come out of there. But for now, pre-tee off, which again, some of these guys be going here just momentarily, in about 30, 40 minutes or something like that. But until then, I think I'm just going to sit this one out.
So I bet someone today.
All right, let's do it.
I have $5 on this person.
Yes.
You talk about horse races and horse racing names that you go with. Mm-hmm. I saw Rico Huey sitting on there.
Rico Hoey. Yes.
Yeah, Rico Hoey. How do you not bet Rico Hoey?
Rico Hoey.
I got $5 on him, 50 to 1.
I love
Why
it.
not?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I figured this was the right time to do it after Justin Thomas flamed out. I'm like, I don't know anyone on this leaderboard.
Yeah,
let's have a little fun with it.
Rico Hoey actually shows up in models pretty good because he makes a lot of birdies. Problem is he makes a lot of bogeys too.
I like the birdies,
but yeah,
not into the bogeys.
But hey,
let's do the birdie thing.
But hey, maybe he can dodge that whole bogey thing that he's got going on with all that. But yeah, so the epic collapse from Justin Thomas yesterday, it is one of the biggest falls we have seen in the course of a round in quite a long time. So again, I mentioned after hole 1, tied for the lead, then dropped 66 positions over the next 17 holes. Justin Thomas, it was actually at the time, had fallen all the way to T66 in this field after being first after the first hole of the day yesterday. I mean, that is just how wild that went for him in that round. And again, it's just, you've played the game, I've played the game. We see the yips happen sometimes with golfers, but typically it's like they just can't find a green with their irons.
Yep.
They can't really chip, like something, we saw this with Victor Hovland for about a season and a half, where he would get around the green and he just couldn't chip it on the ground. His short game was gone. He had no confidence in the chips. You don't normally see the yips on the putting. That's all that I'm missing 2 foot 3 inch putts and all these things like that. So that it's interesting. I can't wait to get the full kind of story behind all this from Justin Thomas, when this tournament's over, if he even chooses to talk to anybody, which he might not do.
It's a wild round.
Yeah.
We were talking about it at the break. I mean, how often do you see a PGA Tour pro leave a 10-footer 2+ feet short? I mean,
not often.
They run it 2 feet by sometimes. But you have zero chance of making a putt if you leave it 2 feet short. And these guys like making putts. It's kind of important to their whole game. And then to walk up upset with yourself and just miss the tapping because you're not paying attention to just shows you mentally where he was at.
And that
with
kind of
his
lets me.
putter.
The reason I bring this up is because we're a couple weeks out from the Masters, and I don't think this is something that you should just gloss over, because the reason he played this turn, all the guys are going to play one of the next 3 tournaments, and it was as a warm up for the Masters. This was the one he thought he could go out there, get some confidence, take a couple weeks off, and then head into the Masters. I don't know. We might see him end up playing one of these other tournaments that we didn't expect him to play, and then you have to wonder just where he's at from a mental standpoint as we head into the Masters. And that's one of the things here, Mike, where if we're starting to look at these guys, I'm not going to run to bet Justin Thomas after a couple weeks.
No,
like this.
especially not at 25 to 1.
Yeah.
And we just threw the Masters odds up there. Scheifele plus 450.
Yeah, I mean, what are you going to do?
That seems awfully short, man.
What are you going to do? I mean, all he does is win. What are you going to do?
Plus 450?
I don't want to play him at plus 450, but he's probably going to go win.
I wouldn't play him. That's way too short.
That's
way too short.
I won't play him, but he's going to go win. That's just what he does. He's just going to win. Let's talk about these odds for these teams to make the playoffs when we come back over in the.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, pop open your phone and look and scroll through, and do you see that DraftKings Sportsbook app? What, you don't?
Why not?
Head to the App Store and download the DraftKings Sportsbook app, and when you do, and you make your first deposit, use the promo code HANDLE, HANDLE, and when you do, oh boy, do we have something for you. How about up to $2,500 in bonus bets? You can earn $500 bonus bet for every $1,000 you bet over at DraftKings Sportsbook, but you have to use that promo code HANDLE. HANDLE. Go download DraftKings Sportsbook. And again, Mike, up to $2,500 in bonus bets, $500 for every 1,000 you bet.
Pretty solid offer right there. You're firing away. Go 500, but you pick up an extra 500. So you got to go 50-50 on these, and you get extra money.
34-24, Marquette over Colorado with about 6 minutes and 5 minutes and 7 seconds. 34-27, I should say now. 5 minutes and 7 seconds left in the first half. So if you're driving along wondering how your bet is going on Marquette, or if you're sitting next to me in the studio wondering how your bet on Marquette is going, that's how it's going.
It's going well. We're back up 10, 37-27, 4:57 left, laying 2.5 here in the first half. So looking pretty good, but we've seen some weird stuff happen so far.
We have seen weird
in March
stuff
Madness
happen for sure. So we're not counting chickens, as they say.
No, they're still in the roost.
So let's take a look at some of these odds that are out there. And again, we're just over the moon here on the handle, because these are books in which we go and we open up, and years past, the little NFL tab would just be so lonely this time of year.
Empty.
Just so maybe there would be Super Bowl odds. Maybe, and that would be it.
Usually you get Super Bowl odds.
Yeah.
But after that,
nothing.
it's a barren desert.
Nothing. And they were so lonely.
Sadness.
And instead now we can click that little tab, and there are so many different bets that we can make, including already, can these teams make the playoffs?
Yeah.
Like, can these teams go out and make the playoffs? And there are some that are incredible favorites, and as they should be, right? Chiefs minus 475. Niners minus 475, Ravens minus 330, Bills minus 300, Falcons minus 300. Hey, I'm not going to say that we called that whole Falcons thing, but Falcons minus 300, Cowboys minus 225, Bengals minus 225, Lions minus 225. So let's just keep on the left side of the screen for those watching at home. And if not, those are the ones that we're going to focus on right now if you're listening to us on the radio. Any of those seem off to you as far as to make the playoffs?
Yeah, 2 of them I think are wildly incorrect. You're telling me the Bills are making the playoffs 4 out of 5 years to make money on this?
Right.
Minus 300 is way too high. If I could get plus 300 to miss, I would take it. Obviously, you're not getting plus 300 with a minus 300. But I could not lay minus 300 on this Buffalo team to make the playoffs. We don't know what's going to happen with the wide receiver spot. Diggs was not good. We don't know who the number 2 wide receiver is going to be there. Yes, you've got Josh Allen, but they are in a ton of cap trouble. Their defense is going to be completely different than what we saw last year. That division is at least frisky. I could not take minus 300 with the Bills.
Mine is going to be pretty interesting that I don't like. Actually, I might even say that I full on dislike it. It is the Ravens at minus 330, and mainly just because of that division that they play in. I mean, what if you're getting, the division that we kind of thought we were going to see last year out of this division? What if we actually do get that division this year, where it's not even necessarily that the Ravens aren't good. It's just you're playing 6 games right off the bat against teams that it could be coin flip games, and then you go in. And the rest of that schedule is going to be a first-place schedule for this Ravens team this year. I don't like that. For them being the 3rd most heavily favored team to make the playoffs this year, I still think they make the playoffs. I just don't like the number attached to it. I'd rather see them over on the right side of this screen, given the division they play in and the schedule they're going to get.
Yeah, I'm the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th. The Ravens, the Bills, and the Falcons, I'm surprised are 3rd, 4th, and 5th to make the playoffs. The Cowboys and the Lions, I feel like, should both be significantly higher, as well as the Eagles on this board, all sitting at minus 225 or minus 200, respectively. The Falcons at minus 300 is also an awful bet. I realize that we both think they're going to make the playoffs, and we both bet them to win the division. What's their division odds right now? Minus 130. Why are you laying minus 300 when you can lay minus 130 to win the division? Do we really think the NFC South is getting 2 playoff teams?
we do not.
No.
We do not.
So to me, like you're paying an extra 170 cents so that maybe they get a wild card?
Yeah.
Come on. But just play them to win the division if you're going to play the Falcons here sitting at minus 300. The team I do like, the Lions sitting at minus 225, I think is a good bet. That would be the one team I think is undervalued specifically on this board. I get that the Packers are supposed to be better, but the fact that the Packers and the Bears are both minus money to make the playoffs is surprising to me. To me, the Lions are the cream of the crop in this division, and there should be more separation between the Lions and the Packers. The Lions right now minus 225, Packers minus 190. I think the Lions are probably the 2nd most likely team to make the playoffs in the NFC next year.
Yeah, because listen, even if the Packers, because I'm of the same mindset as you, where it is. Sure, I think the Packers could challenge them for the division. I do not think that the Bears. I get the hype around it. they made some good offseason acquisitions. They're going to draft Caleb Williams. I get it. I understand all of the buzz around the Bears. I don't think that happens in year one. Very rarely do we see what we saw last year with C.J. Stroud, where it's just like, oh, a team flips with a rookie quarterback. You just don't see that very often. And so I'm going to go on the years and years and years and years and years of track record that we have, as opposed to the kind of outlier, which I see is what C.J. Stroud and Houston Texans were able to do last year. So for me, yeah, I can see the Packers challenging them for the division. That doesn't mean I don't think that the Lions will still do what they need to do on the field to get a playoff spot.
And to me, you've got three separate scenarios here, right? We've got the Bears, who you are betting a high variance on the come, right? Like, hey, maybe this happens, maybe it doesn't. If it does, we could see them play very well. But it could go poorly for the Bears this year as well. You've got the Packers, who are kind of a year ahead of the Bears. They showed that ability last year, and you're saying, okay, they're definitely going to take another step forward, and Love is definitely going to take another step forward. That's what this price is. Then you have the Lions, who just did it.
Yeah.
Like, they've already proved that they can do it. The other two teams, to get to the numbers you're getting at, you are saying they're going to take a step forward. The Lions, they just have to do what they did last year, and they should be better than they were last year. They've started to fix the secondary. The offense should be better with Gibbs back there. You get your offensive coordinator back. Goff has all the weapons. You've got Laporta's second year. To me, the Lions have as good a chance to take a little bit of a step forward as anyone else in this division.
I agree.
And yet,
I think the Lions are going to be a top 5 team next year. I really do. I think they'll be a top 5 team. So let's look on the other side of the coin here.
Can I do one more real quick?
Yeah.
Why are the Chargers favorites to make the playoffs?
Yeah.
They're minus 115. Just give me the no. Give me the no.
Seriously.
No.
So the Niners, you and I have talked about kind of extensively here, that we're just not going to crown them that division.
Not yet.
Right? We're just not going to crown them. Minus 475, which means the no to make the playoffs for the 49ers is plus 350. So 3.5 to 1 on the no for them to make the playoffs. Would you rather bet the yes at minus 475 or the no at plus 350?
Do I get a free $100 to bet this, or is it my own money? I would rather bet the yes. My issue is with the NFC. It feels like the South is a one team division. It feels like the North gets 2, and I don't think that you're going to get any more than 2 from the East with Dallas and Philadelphia. That leaves at worst 2 spots for the West. I think it's unlikely both the Rams and Seahawks jump them.
Yeah, it's the thing for me where I am okay saying this, and I'm not saying this so that like people can angry tweet us. I'm okay saying that I think that there's a chance the 49ers don't win the division. I'm okay saying that, and I don't think that that's me trying to like make headline or say something outlandish.
Hot take.
What I will say though is at the same time, in the same breath, that I don't see a scenario in which they don't make the playoffs too, right? So it's kind of like, yeah, do I think that maybe the Rams run on the right side of variance and whatever, and could they end up somehow weirdly tripping and falling their way to 12 or 13 wins, and then the Niners have 11 wins or something? Sure, I think that that's the case, but they're going to make the playoffs with 11 wins.
Yeah, they will. And you would need Seattle to end up with 11 wins as well, and then the Niners with 9, and then maybe they don't get a wild card, right? That's the world where they miss the playoffs. I just don't see it with the amount of talent that they have on that football roster.
Yeah, I'm with you. So that was an interesting one though, because if you got to lay 475, you're going to get a nice number on the other side, plus 350 on that one as well. You and I both, the Chiefs are just going to.
They're going to win the AFC West.
They're going to win those. They're going to win.
Pencil it in.
Yeah, so we don't.
Assuming no injuries.
We're not worried about the other side of that one.
No,
like we're not worried about the other side of that one. So we'll look at some of these other ones a little bit later. There are some ones that are plus money that I think that are fairly interesting for us to take a look at as well. What about the other side though, real quick, of the other side of the Ravens, which is if they're minus 330, the no is plus 260.
I mean, I don't hate your argument.
I would rather play the no. That one I would say. I would rather bet the no than the yes at the minus 330 price.
See, I would agree with you because, again, at minus 330, they need to make the playoffs 4 out of 5 years to be profitable. That's not easy to do inside of that division. And you expect 2, maybe 3 teams, I would say probably 2, get in from that division. If that's the case, and you've got a Pittsburgh team, which looks like they're going to be a little bit better than last year, depending on what else they do at the wide receiver position. The Browns will be better than last year. The Bengals will be better than last year. It makes it tough to make the case that that 1 in 5 times they don't fall out of that top 3.
Well, I think there's just more contenders in the AFC to slide into a playoff
100%.
spot too, right? Like just steal one of those playoff spots is not just going to be a given for them. We scour the sports world for good news and bad news when we come back here on The Handle.